I'm just gonna throw some quick thoughts out there because you guys in the MO2 community are just you're freaking the fuck out. Like you know, a lot of the things you are saying are valid and true, and the concerns are at least good-hearted, but the problem is that y'all are being entirely too emotional about it. Now, like, yeah, they haven't finished MO2, but the thing is about their business model is that you guys aren't thinking this through properly. Okay, all the people that have bought MO2 have bought it, and they haven't started the subscription model yet. So they have to make money to continue the game's development somehow. So honestly, this is the result of that mentality, in my opinion. I mean, why not the space market? There's clearly an audience for it. Now, in the past, Henrik has said that his one of his favorite games, at least, was Star Wars Galaxies, and in fact, I think he also said that Mortal Online was based off of what Star Wars Galaxies was, just in a fantasy setting. So, if the man wants to do it, then fuck, let him do it. Um, and it's not going to split the community. I've seen that before. It's like that's a double standard argument. You can't say that your community isn't into space games and then say that it's going to split the community. It doesn't work that way. So, which is it? Either you'll play it or you won't. And that's honestly where you should be at. I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm telling you, that the way y'all are coming off about it's entirely too harsh. This is years out from even being playable. It's not something to beat the doors down to play. So I mean, just let it happen. Let me be one of the people that, because I'm in the space games, right? It's not so much the theme of the game. I mean, it matters, but it's the way that this man builds his games that make me interested in what this is. Now, depending on the scope of it, is going to determine whether or not we actually see something, viable and tangible. You know, I would hope that it's not going to be something as ridiculous as Star Citizen's scope and magnitude. And if they keep it like in small within like let's say a star system, with like a limit, not even a limited amount of planets. Like space could work different in this fucking universe for all we know. So again, let's just see how this all ties together lore wise. Of course, it's in the far future, but I'm very curious to see how they go from from where we're at now, story wise, or whatever story this game has, or lore wise, into what this is. So that's interesting, at least for me. For the rest of you, clearly, it's not so interesting, right? Because you're not into sci-fi. But another thing I saw was it was unwanted and unasked for. These are two things that are indeed true. It was not wanted, right? Because people weren't wanting Star Vault to make a sci-fi game because there's other people out there making sci-fi games, right? So no one wanted them to do this, and of course, no one asked them to do this because why would any of us ask Star Vault, the people who are making a medieval hardcore fantasy game, to make a sci-fi game, right? This makes sense, right? But full circle back to the beginning of what I said, because I don't want this video to be long, is that this is a guy who's a Star Wars fan and is clearly a fan of the sci-fi universe. He probably, in my opinion, picked fantasy to start with because it was easier setting to work with, but now that he's got Unreal 5 and all this other stuff going on, maybe, just maybe, he can truly, remake a Star Wars Galaxies. It doesn't mean that, you know, it's going to be taken away from MO2's development. I mean, in y'all's opinion and mind and all this other stuff, yeah, y'all seem to think that and, vocalize that, but if they're admitting that they have an investor and they have a third party and they have a third party studio that's not involved with MO2's development but is instead reliant on the assets that they make for MO2 for this Exodus game, that only means that the development of Exodus is completely reliant on the development of MO2. So therefore, that the development of this game doesn't go forward until certain milestones and hallmarks or whatever are met in the MO2 game. And if money that is going into the sci-fi game that again no one cares about apparently is funding your game, your fantasy game, this is something to be fucking celebrated, right? You have idiots like me who are willing to give Starvolt more money to produce your fantasy game, while the sci-fi game is just a gimmick, if you will, to, move y'all more along the line in development because of, again, like I mentioned before, Starvolt's business model and the way that they have marketed and sold their game, which is you buy a copy of it right now and it comes with a month subscription until the future. That's how it works. So they have a limited amount of money that they can make because they have a targeted audience and a limited audience, right? It's not like other game developers who are, watering down their games and making it more casual for accessibility. Henrik has sacrificed that to do what he's doing now. And that's the only sole reason why I still even play Mortal Online 2 and quite frankly tolerate you fucking toxic motherfuckers, to be completely honest with you. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. And, don't be so salty and butthurt. Look at it from a different, this is a positive thing for you fucking people. It's not a negative. So, and yes, just like y'all, I had a pretty weird reaction. Like I said in chat, it felt like something in my head, in my brain, popped, and it sounded and felt like glass when I saw this, because it was something that I never thought I would see again, because of what, again, most of you are saying. I agree with what most of you are saying, but you could be a little bit more neutral about it and not come off as fucking emotional about it, right? Yes, there's reason to have emotion about it, but don't be overly ridiculous.